All right, so today we're going to take a deep dive into some pretty complex stuff. We're going to unpack this whole concept of significant form in art.
Oh, it's a fascinating one for sure. A real brain tickler.
Yeah, and you sent over these excerpts from Art by Clive Bell. You've got them in Arabic, which is awesome.
Yeah. I thought it'd be interesting to see it from that perspective,
Absolutely. So I guess to really get into it, for anyone who might not be familiar with him, who was this Clive Bell guy anyway?
Well, picture this. It's the early 1900s in England, right?
Yeah.
Victorian era, very buttoned up, very traditional. And along comes Clive Bell and his crew.
His crew.
Yeah, the Bloomsbury Group. Bunch of intellectuals, writers, artists, thinkers.
Yeah. Oh, right. I've heard of them.
Yeah, they were basically rebels, challenging all the norms, the artistic conventions of the time.
And Bell was right there with them, pushing those boundaries.
Oh, absolutely. He wasn't content just accepting the typical ideas about what makes art. He wanted to dig deeper, find the essence.
And that's where the significant form thing comes in, right?
Exactly. That was his big idea. This radical notion that what really makes art powerful isn't the subject matter itself, but the form.
Hold on. So you're saying like a super realistic painting of, I don't know, a bowl of fruit or something.
Right.
Even if it's technically amazing, wouldn't be considered real art, according to Bell.
It's not that it wouldn't be art necessarily, but he'd say the fruit part, the realism, isn't what makes it truly stand out. He called those kinds of works illustrations.
Illustrations.
Yeah, like they might show off skill, maybe even beauty, but they're missing that certain something, that significant form.
Okay, so then what exactly did he mean by significant form? What is that?
So he believed that certain arrangements of lines, colors, shapes, all those formal elements, they have this inherent power.
Okay.
To make the viewer feel a certain way.
Like an emotional response.
Exactly. It's not about recognizing what's in the picture, but about how those forms make you feel on a gut level.
Interesting.
He compared it to like looking at a Persian rug.
Oh, rug.
Yeah, the patterns, the colors, that's what grabs you.
Yeah.
Not whether it looks like a flower or an animal or whatever.
Right. It's the arrangement itself.
Exactly. The arrangement and the feeling that arrangement creates in you, the viewer. That's the core of art, according to Bell.
So this idea of significant form, it really makes you think about art in a whole new light. Like it's not just about what you're looking at, but how those shapes and colors actually make you feel.
Yeah, it's about that visceral reaction, right?
Totally. But Bell didn't just stop at defining it. He went on to analyze like the entire history of art based on this idea.
Oh, yeah. He was on a mission to prove his point. He went way back.
And he saw this kind of back and forth, right? Between art that embraced significant form and art that strayed from it.
Exactly. Like a pendulum swinging through time.
So maybe instead of covering everything, we could focus on one comparison he makes. He talks about early Christian art and then jumps way ahead to the Renaissance. And he seems to have very different reactions to those two periods.
Oh, yeah, for sure. They're like opposite ends of the spectrum in a way.
So let's start with the early Christian stuff. I mean, those mosaics you see in old churches. I have to admit, I always found them kind of simple.
Simple? How so?
I don't know, maybe even a little crude, like they were lacking something. Wouldn't Bell have thought they were too simplistic? Not visually powerful enough?
Well, that's the thing about Bell. He could see past all that. He was looking for something deeper.
Right.
He actually loved the simplicity of early Christian art.
Really?
Yeah, he argued that those mosaics, with their stylized figures and the emphasis on symbolism over realism, they weren't trying to perfectly recreate the world. It was about evoking this spiritual response through form and color.
Oh, I see. So those shimmering gold backgrounds, the intense eyes of the figures, he saw that as significant form.
Exactly. He felt like those early artists, maybe even without realizing it, they were tapping into something powerful. Now fast forward to the Renaissance, and it's a whole different story.
Because suddenly you've got Michelangelo, Da Vinci, all these masters of realism trying to paint things exactly as they are.
Obsessed with detail, with perfect anatomy perspective.
Yeah.
And Bell was not impressed.
I bet he was rolling his eyes at all those perfectly rendered grapes and stuff.
Pretty much. He thought the Renaissance was too focused on technical skill, on showing off, like, look what we can do.
But didn't he get that those paintings could still be emotionally powerful? I mean, the drama, the expressions on the faces, the stories they were telling.
He got it, but he saw it as a different kind of emotion. For him, those Renaissance paintings, they were evoking a response to the skill, the beauty, the story being told. but not that pure, almost spiritual reaction he got from significant form.
So he felt like Renaissance art was a step backwards in a way.
In a way, yeah. Like they got so caught up in the what that they forgot about the how. The arrangement of forms, the thing he believed, gave art its real power.
Interesting. But I guess the story of art isn't always a straight line of progress, is it?
Definitely not. It's messy, full of detours and dead ends.
Yeah.
But this tension between representation and significant form, it pops up again and again.
It's like Cézanne shifted the focus, you know? The apples, the mountains, they were still there, but it was the forms themselves that became the main point.
Exactly. Bell thought that was so revolutionary. Cézanne showed that you didn't have to completely abandon painting real things to achieve significant form. It was all about how you arrange those things on the canvas. Prioritizing form over just trying to perfectly copy reality.
So where does that leave Bell's theory today? I mean, it's been over 100 years since he wrote all this stuff. Does it still even matter?
Right. It's a whole different art world now.
We're drowning in images, digital art, photography. Does significant form even make sense anymore?
It's a good question. I think Bell would be pretty overwhelmed by the art world today, like all the new ways to create images.
You'd probably be like, what is all this?
Totally. But I do think his theory still has something to offer. It's about how we react to visual things, like when you see a photo that's just perfectly composed, or even a film.
The way the shot is framed, the light and shadow.
All of it, yeah. It could be a centuries-old painting or something someone created on their phone yesterday, but those elements of significant form are still there. And when they come together in a certain way, they can really hit you on a gut level.
It makes you wonder if it's just how our brains are wired, you know? Like we're programmed to react to certain visual things in a certain way.
Yeah, maybe. It's a question a lot of people are trying to answer. But for Bell, it wasn't really about the science of it. He just wanted people to see that significant form was a thing, to really pay attention to how things were arranged visually and let themselves react to it.
Don't just look at the what, look at the how.
Exactly. And I think that's a good reminder for us today, especially now when we're constantly bombarded with images. It's easy to just scroll past them without really seeing them.
So slow down, pay attention, see if those forms make you feel something.
Yeah. You might be surprised what you discover. You might even start to understand what Clive Bell was getting at with this whole significant form idea.
That sometimes the way something is presented is just as important as what's being presented.
And that's something worth remembering.
Absolutely. Well, I think we've given everyone a lot to think about today.
We've only just scratched the surface, really.
Right, but that's the beauty of art, isn't it? Always more to explore. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Clive Bell and significant form. Until next time, keep looking at art, keep thinking about art, and most importantly, keep enjoying art.